My name is Charlie, and on this channel I make videos about building wealth and achieving financial freedom so that you can free up your time to focus on the things that you truly care about. So this video is going to be all about how I track my stock portfolio using a spreadsheet that I created on Google Sheets. So I know some of you may have downloaded the Excel version that I used to have linked in my videos, but I've recently made quite a few updates to it and transferred it over to Google Sheets. And now it's set up through my Patreon page, so of course if you decide to support me over there, it'll help to support the channel so that I can continue making these videos. But even if you can't or don't want to join on Patreon, I think you'll find this video valuable just to see generally how I track my portfolio, so you can skip to this point in the video if that's all you're interested in. But for the rest of you, if you want basic access to the spreadsheet template, which you can then make a copy of and use for yourself, you can get that by joining the $2 tier on Patreon. And I will be making updates to the spreadsheet as I see room for improvement or additional features, so by continuing to contribute each month, you'll get access to all of those updates. But if you want to upgrade to the $4 tier, you'll not only get access to the spreadsheet template, but you'll also get access to my Road to Financial Freedom portfolio spreadsheet so that you can see all of my holdings in there in real time. And you'll also have the ability to submit spreadsheet feature requests. So if there's something you want to see added to the spreadsheet, you can just let me know and I'll consider adding it if at all possible. Then if you go all the way up to the $10 tier, you'll get all the benefits that I mentioned before, plus you'll get access to my main personal portfolio spreadsheet. So you can see which stocks I'm trading at any given time, which types of trades I'm using, which calls I'm selling from my covered calls, and so on. Or of course, if you just like the content and want to support me further, Patreon is a great way to do it. And I will likely be raising these prices over time, but I wanted to allow those of you who have been supporting me thus far to get in at a better price. So once you join, your price will never go up for as long as you keep your membership. And I'm also considering adding some sort of private Discord chat at some point, which we could use to discuss trades and do some Q&A, so definitely let me know in the comments if that's something you'd like to see added. Now let's take a look at the spreadsheet. Alright, so once you get access to the spreadsheet, what you're going to see here is this template. So the first thing you'll do here is just make a copy so that you can use it for yourself. You can name it whatever you want, and you want to make sure that you hit copy comments because I do have some comments in there that'll kind of guide you through how to use it. Now for the purpose of this tutorial, I'm basically just going to set up my Road to Financial Freedom portfolio so that you can see how you'd set up a portfolio from scratch. So the first thing you do here is just enter your portfolio start date. In this case, it was December 7th, 2020. And then once you enter that, it'll populate this first date over here. So you'll want to enter your initial deposit. In my case, it was $5,000. And then if you've added any other deposits, you'll want to put those in as well. So since I've already been tracking this portfolio for a while, I just went ahead and pasted in my previous data right here. So we can see so far I've deposited a total of $8,250 into this portfolio. Then I'll also enter my current account value, which at the time of filming this video is $7,231. So now since we haven't entered our actual holdings yet, this data isn't 100% correct. So let's start entering those. So I have it set up basically to cater to the strategies that I use on this channel. So I have a section for your covered call stocks, section for your poor man's covered calls, an options section, which is where I keep track of my leaps options, a spread/naked calls section, and then my long-term hold section. So as you can see here in the top left corner, any heading that has red text means that that data needs to be entered manually. So when you go to enter your holdings, you're going to have to enter the ticker symbol, quantity, and trade price. And then these next 4 columns have formulas in them, so they'll get populated automatically. And then if you sell a call against your shares, you'll have to manually enter which call you sold. So my first covered call holding is ChargePoint. I have 100 shares, and my trade price was an average of $25. Then I sold a covered call at the 4/16 expiration date at a strike price of $25. So that's how I like to enter it, but obviously you can do that however you like. Then you'll just go through and enter the rest of your holdings in the same way. So those are all of my covered call holdings as of now. And you'll see that if I have a covered call stock where I keep some shares on the side, for example, Zynga here, I have 30 shares on the side. I still put that in the covered call section and then I just write free and clear. But again, you can use whatever terminology you prefer. And the spreadsheet is set up to accommodate quite a few holdings. But if you want to delete some of these cells just to clean it up, you can just go ahead and right click, hit delete cells, shift up, and it'll delete those cells without causing any issues in the sheet. And then if you ever want to add them back, just go ahead and right click again, insert cells, shift down. Then you'll just want to make sure those cells still have the formulas in there. So just go ahead and take one of the rows with the formulas and drag it down, and then you're good to go. So it's pretty easy to work with even if you just have a basic knowledge of spreadsheets. But of course, feel free to message me if you ever have any issues with it. Now for your poor man's covered calls, you can see that there are 4 red columns, and that's because this spreadsheet can't retrieve the prices of options. It can only get the prices of actual shares. So when you do buy options, you'll just have to manually update those prices. So I'll go ahead and enter my Apple poor man's covered call. And again, you can kind of use whatever formatting you like to use. Personally, I'll go ahead and enter all of the information of the call right in this first column here. So this is a June 17th, 2022, 111.25 strike call with a delta at the time I bought it of 0.75. Quantity is 100 because it's an option, which is done in 100 share increments. The trade price was $35.90, and the current price is around $22. Then, since it's a poor man's covered call, I did sell a call against it with an expiration date of 4/9 and a strike price of $137. So you can see it keeps track of the total value of all your poor man's covered calls. And again, if you want this to update, you'll just have to manually update the price of your option as it fluctuates. Then the option section is going to be the exact same as the poor man's covered call, so you'll have to enter the option prices manually as they fluctuate in value. So currently I have 2 calls on AMD. Again, when you buy an option, you'll want to enter the quantity as 100. And then in the note section, I like to put the expiration date and strike price, but you could also put the delta, or again, just whatever you like to keep track of. Then for the spreads and naked calls, I don't actually have any set up in this portfolio, but I'll just paste one in from my main portfolio so you can see how the formatting looks. So right now I have one on Apple. I enter the quantity as 100. The trade price is the price that Apple was trading at the time I set up this naked call. And then the current price is automatically populated. And then again in the notes, I just enter the expiration date and the strike price, and NC stands for naked call. But if I set up a bear call spread, I'll do BCS. And you'll notice that there's no totals at the bottom, and that's because you don't have to buy any shares up front when you set up these naked calls or bear call spreads. So it doesn't factor into the total value of my portfolio. Then the long-term holds are pretty straightforward as well. So you just enter the stocks that you're holding, how many shares of each, and what price you bought them at, and the rest will be automatically calculated. Then I also like to keep track of whether or not each stock pays a dividend, but obviously again, you can customize this column to be whatever you like. So for each of your holdings, it'll show you your total percentage change, your gain and loss, and then at the bottom it shows you your totals. Now down here, I also just like to keep track of the stocks that I don't own yet, but I'm keeping an eye on for when I do have available cash to buy them. So for the quantity, I just put 0 so it doesn't mess up my total. So now once we've got all of our holdings entered, we're just going to quickly jump down to the allocation sheet over here. And basically all you have to do is enter your goal allocations for each of your categories. So for me, I like to use a maximum of 40% of my margin. This number should always be at 100 because this is your total portfolio value, including margin. And then you can allocate whatever percentage you like to your covered call stocks, leaps options, and long-term holds. So this has to add up to 100%. So for me, I'm doing 78% covered call stocks, 7% leaps options, and 15% long-term holds. And then once you enter your desired percentages, it'll update all of these values. So it'll set your maximum value that you're allowed to hold in each of those categories. It'll tell you your current value. And then based on that, it'll tell you how much cash available you have to spend in each of those categories. And then those numbers will be used to populate this main tab here when it comes to calculating the percent of margin that you're using and so on. Now the last thing we need to do on this main sheet here is just enter our daily data. And the only thing that you have to do here is enter the value of your portfolio at the end of each day. So this first row should already be populated with the data from the day before you started your portfolio. So it basically just takes your initial deposit and gets your baseline of data set up. And again, that's based on the date you entered up here. So if you were to change it, that would change the dates over here. And it's also important to note that this start date does have to be a valid trading day. So for example, if you made your initial deposit on a Sunday, you'll want to enter that Monday as your actual start date. And that's actually exactly what I did in this case. So I'll just start going ahead and entering my data. And you can see that all of this is automatically populated by these formulas, and it'll also create some charts over here, which we'll get into in a minute. And for this to be accurate, it is important that you actually enter the correct dates over here that you deposited or withdrew money, because that's taken into account over in this table here when it calculates your total gain. Now it's also important to remember that this chart does eliminate weekends because obviously the market isn't open on weekends, but it doesn't take into account stock market holidays. So when you do encounter a holiday like we have right here on Christmas, what you'll want to do is overwrite that data manually with the next trading day. So since the market was closed on December 25th, 2020, the next trading day after that would be December 28th. So we're just gonna go ahead and enter the 28th right here. So it'll just skip the 25th, and then the formulas below that will populate with the proper values. So hopefully that makes sense. Alternatively, if you don't want to do that or that gets too confusing, you could just paste your data from the prior day. So we'll just say that the value at the end of the day on the 25th was the same as it was on the 24th. But for me, I just think it's easier to enter the next trading day manually whenever you come across a holiday. And I think you get the idea at this point. And again, this is all explained in a comment up in this top left corner here. So now I've got all of my data entered, and you can see it created some little charts over here. But one more thing you're gonna have to do is just adjust the bounds of the chart, because obviously everyone's account value is gonna be different. But by default, I just have it set up to accommodate about a $100,000 portfolio. So to change it, you can just right click on the chart, hit data range, and it'll open up an entire menu over here. So to change the axes, you can go over to customize, click vertical axis, and then just change your minimum and maximum values here. And after doing that, my grid lines disappeared, so you can go down to grid lines and ticks, and then just change the increments that you want it to display. So I'll go to $1,000 increments, and then in between that, every $500, it'll have another line. So again, if you have a basic knowledge of spreadsheets, this should be pretty easy to modify. Then same thing down here, it shows your percentage gains. So I'm just gonna modify the axes to better accommodate my data. Then this last chart here shows your total portfolio value. So you just have to repeat the same process here. And once you get all that done, you're basically all set for this main portion of the portfolio, but there are a few other sheets that add some extra features. So let me walk you through those as well. And these three down here, premiums, short-term trades, and dividends, are all pretty similar. So I'll start with the premiums tab here. And of course, this is gonna keep track of the premiums that you collect. So this first month will automatically be populated based on your starting date. And then from there, you'll just need to enter the data from each of the calls that you sell. So for example, in December 2020, I sold a call on Zynga. It'll automatically populate the number of contracts with 1, but obviously you can change that if you like. Then you just enter the price that you sold the contract for, and then it'll show you the net premium you've collected. And of course, if at any point you buy back that call, let's say we buy it back for 2 cents, it'll take that away from the net premium. So now our net premium is $27. So I'll go ahead and enter the rest of my data here. And you can see I'll also put my poor man's covered calls in here in the same way. I just denote it as PMCC. And then I do the same thing for a bear call spread or a naked call. So I'd either just put BCS for bear call spread or NC. And then it'll add up all of your premiums for that month. So that's pretty useful to keep track of if you're trying to use your covered call portfolio for income. Now the short-term trades tab is what I use when I buy a stock with the intention of selling it quickly for a profit. So that's usually what I do when I buy leaps options. So for example, in December 2020, I bought an Apple call. It automatically populates with 100 shares, but again, you can manually change that if you like. I bought it for a price of $4.80, sold for $5.30. So my total profit from that leaps option was $50. And then if I have trades that are still open, for example, my 2 AMD leaps, which I haven't sold yet, you can still enter your buy prices, but just don't enter a sell price, and it won't calculate your total profit or loss until you actually enter that sell price. And obviously this sheet isn't just for options. So say you bought 25 shares of AMD at a price of $80 per share, sold it at $81 per share, and then you have a profit of $25. So it works in that way as well. And just like the premiums tab, it'll show you your total monthly profits. And of course, if you just want to clean it up a bit, you can either just hide or delete some of these columns here. Then dividends works in a very similar way, so you can just enter the stock. And at the bare minimum, if you don't care about tracking the shares, date, and dividend per share, you can just go ahead and enter the dividend amount. But if you do want to enter all of that data, I had 1 share of TSM. The dividend was paid out on 1/14 and it was 36 cents. And then it'll calculate the total amount. And again, at the end of the month, it'll show you your total. So now the last sheet here is the projected income. And the goal of this sheet is basically just to track your total portfolio performance from month to month. So you can see there's a lot of data here and it does look a little intimidating, but it's actually not too bad. So again, you'll just need to fill in the red columns, and basically just at the end of each month, you'll want to fill in all of the red columns for that month. So for example, at the end of December 2020, we would fill all of these in. So for the monthly premium brought in, you'll just want to link that over to your total premium, which I've already done in this case. So again, you can see that it's linked to the corresponding cell in the premiums tab. Same thing with short-term trades, same thing with dividend income. Monthly dollars added is just gonna be, of course, the number of dollars you added that month. Keep in mind for this first month, you don't wanna include the initial deposit. So you can see my initial deposit is automatically populated up here. And then for the other ones, I'll just go sum, go back to my main tab here, sum together all of the deposits from December. and then it's populated there. Then enter the monthly margin interest. If you're using margin, you'll just want to enter that manually. In my case, it was $6.72. Then you'll want to enter the portfolio value at the end of the last trading day of the month. So in my case, that was $5,412. And you can see in the month of December, I was actually down a little bit because I had deposited $5,600 and I ended up at $5,400. So then it'll give you all of these growth rates, total gain, all of those type of numbers based on the data that you input. Now these columns over here, the working income and monthly expenses, are optional. You don't have to use them, but they're basically designed so that if you're using your covered call portfolio for income, but you all, they're basically designed so that if you're using your covered call portfolio for income, but you're also working a job, you can enter your working income and your monthly expenses. So let's say my working income was $2,000. My monthly expenses were $4,000. That means my net monthly expenses that weren't covered by my working income was $2,000, meaning that I would need my portfolio to generate $2,000 in order to live off of it. Alright, so now all of my data has been input through March 2021, and you can see all these numbers down here are basically projections of what you can expect to happen to your portfolio in the future. So for example, if you want to see what your monthly premium is expected to be for next month, based on the averages of your previous months, you can take a look at that. You can take a look at what your premium is expected to be a few years from now. So it is pretty useful, and right now I have it set up to go all the way out to the end of 2030. So of course, if you want it to go further, you could just drag these formulas all the way down. Then I've got a few charts here as well, which again, you'll need to change the bounds depending on the size of your portfolio. So this first one shows my portfolio value, and you can see right now, since my portfolio is down overall, it's projecting that it's going to go down over time, but we'll see that once my all-time gains turn positive, we'll see that exponential growth curve. So for example, I'll pull up my main portfolio so you can see what it's supposed to look like. So you can see sort of how my portfolio has grown over time and how it's expected to grow in the future based on my average monthly returns. So then we've got a chart for monthly covered call income. So you can basically track the premiums that you bring in each month. And then I threw a line in there, which is your net monthly expenses. So I just set it to 500 for the sake of this example. So it's basically a good way to track whether or not you're exceeding your monthly expenses with your covered call premiums. And then of course it projects out your future covered call premiums for months that haven't occurred yet. Then I also like to track the monthly premium as a percentage of my portfolio. So that's what this last chart is here. My goal is to keep it between 2 and 6% per month. So I just threw these lines in here to denote that. And if you want to change those goal percentages, you can go back to the table here and change it in columns E and F. So for example, in January of 2021, I brought in $536 worth of premium, which was about 8% of my total portfolio value. So as a quick summary, once you get it all set up, really all you need to do on a regular basis is number 1, make sure you're tracking all of your deposits. Number 2, just keep your holdings up to date and make sure you're entering the prices for all of your options as well. Number 3, at the end of the day, you just enter the value of your portfolio. And then whenever you just want to update this spreadsheet, you just have to update this current account value because obviously that'll fluctuate and there's no real good way to track that automatically. So you do just have to enter that manually. So my portfolio actually ended the day closer to around $7,500, and you can see that adjusts all my numbers in this table here. Then in addition to that, whenever you sell a covered call or set up a bear call spread or a naked call, really just collect any premium using any trade. You want to enter that in the premiums tab. If you ever make a short-term buy and sell trade, you'll put that in the short-term trades. Whenever you collect a dividend, you'll put that in the dividends tab. And then only at the end of each month, you just need to update all of these red columns over here in the projected income tab. So hopefully that all makes sense. Of course, feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. And if you're part of the tiers where you have access to the feature request form, definitely let me know of any features or updates that you'd like to see made to this spreadsheet. So thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you all in the next one.